In the summer of 2008, the disappearance of 2-year-old Caylee Anthony gripped the nation. What began as a missing child report quickly spiraled into a case of deceit, tragedy, and one of the most controversial trials in American history. At its center was Caylee Anthony, Caylee's young mother, whose lies and behavior raised more questions than answers. Welcome back to Quick Case HQ. Today, we'll take a deep dive into the Caylee Anthony case, exploring the evidence, the trial, and the unanswered questions that continue to haunt this story. Caylee Anthony was born on March 19, 1986, in Orlando, Florida. By all outward appearances, she grew up in a typical suburban family. Her parents, Cindy and George Anthony, worked hard to provide a stable home for Caylee and her brother Lee. However, those who knew the Anthonys described a family dynamic fraught with tension, secrets, and control. Caylee was described by friends as bright and sociable, but she had a reputation for dishonesty. In high school, she told people she was set to graduate with her class, only for her parents to discover, on the day of the ceremony, that she hadn't earned enough credits. When Caylee became pregnant at 19, she kept it a secret from her family for months. Eventually, she gave birth to Caylee Marie Anthony in August 2005, and by all accounts, Caylee quickly became the center of the Anthony household. Cindy and George adored their granddaughter, and for a while, life seemed normal. But beneath the surface, tensions were simmering. June 16, 2008, marked the last day Caylee Anthony was seen alive. According to Caylee, she left her daughter with a nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez before heading to work. But as detectives would later discover, this nanny never existed. Over the next 31 days, Caylee's actions would become increasingly bizarre. Instead of showing concern for her missing child, Caylee was seen partying at nightclubs, shopping with friends, and even getting a tattoo that read, Bella Vita, Italian for beautiful life. She stayed with her boyfriend, Tony Lazzaro, and avoided her parents, offering vague explanations whenever they asked about Caylee. As the days turned into weeks, Caylee's mother, Cindy, grew increasingly suspicious. On July 15, 2008, after a month of unanswered questions, Cindy tracked Caylee down and demanded answers. What followed was a series of 911 calls that revealed the extent of the family's desperation. This call would be the beginning of a case that would soon capture the world's attention. Detectives quickly began questioning Caylee, and it didn't take long for her web of lies to unravel. She told police that Caylee had been taken by the nanny, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, and even provided details about where the nanny lived and worked. But when detectives followed up, they found no record of Zenaida at the given address. In fact, the apartment Caylee claimed belonged to the nanny had been vacant for months. Caylee's lies didn't stop there. She claimed she worked at Universal Studios and even led police to her supposed office. But after wandering the halls aimlessly, Caylee finally admitted she hadn't worked there in years. Detectives were left with more questions than answers. As the investigation deepened, attention turned to Caylee's car, a white Pontiac Sunfire. Both Cindy and George Anthony had noted a foul odor coming from the trunk, which they described as smelling like decomposition. When police searched the vehicle, they found something chilling: traces of human decomposition and a single hair consistent with Caylee's. Additionally, forensic tests revealed high levels of chloroform, a chemical that can be used to sedate. Perhaps even more disturbing were the internet searches found on the family's computer. Terms like chloroform, how to make weapons, and neck-breaking painted a disturbing picture. Despite the mounting evidence, the case remained circumstantial. That changed on December 11, 2008, when meter reader Roy Kronk made a gruesome discovery. In a wooded area just a quarter-mile from the Anthony home, Kronk found a trash bag containing a small skull, later confirmed to be Caylee Anthony. The scene was harrowing. The remains were heavily decomposed, but key pieces of evidence remained: duct tape wrapped around the skull and the outline of a heart-shaped sticker. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. How had Caylee's body ended up there? And what role, if any, did her mother play in her death? Forensic experts testified that the duct tape was likely used as a murder weapon, suffocating Caylee. But due to the state of decomposition, the exact cause of death could not be determined. This ambiguity would prove critical in the trial to come. The trial of Caylee Anthony began on May 24, 2011, and quickly became a media spectacle. The prosecution argued that Caylee had murdered Caylee to escape the responsibilities of motherhood. They presented evidence of Caylee's lies, her partying lifestyle, and the forensic findings from the car and the crime scene. But the defense, led by Jose Baez, had a different story. Baez claimed that Caylee had accidentally drowned in the family pool and that George Anthony, in a panic, had helped cover it up. Baez also alleged that George had SA'd Caylee for years, which he argued explained Caylee's tendency to lie and her seemingly cold demeanor. The trial was filled with dramatic moments, from Caylee Anthony's tearful testimony to the contentious debates between expert witnesses over the validity of the forensic evidence. The prosecution relied heavily on the duct tape and the chloroform searches, while the defense focused on the lack of direct evidence linking Caylee to Caylee's death. After 6 weeks of testimony and more than 400 pieces of evidence, the jury deliberated for just 11 hours. On July 5, 2011, they delivered their verdict. Not guilty of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and aggravated manslaughter of a child. Caylee Anthony was found guilty only of providing false information to law enforcement. The verdict shocked the nation. Outside the courthouse, protesters erupted in anger, holding signs that read, "Justice for Caylee." Legal experts were divided. Some argued that the prosecution had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, while others believed the jury had misunderstood the concept of reasonable doubt. After her acquittal, Caylee Anthony largely disappeared from public view. She gave a few interviews, including one in 2017, where she stated, "I sleep pretty good at night." Today, Caylee lives a low-profile life in Florida, reportedly working as a private investigator. But the public's fascination with her case has never faded. To this day, debates rage over her guilt or innocence, with many believing that justice for Caylee was never served. The Caylee Anthony case remains one of the most polarizing in American history. It's a story of lies, family dysfunction, and a justice system that left the nation divided. What really happened to Caylee Anthony? The truth may never fully be known. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Was justice served, or did the system fail Caylee? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for another deep dive into the world's most fascinating true crime cases. And as always, stay safe.